Hey, welcome back, everybody. I am 𝗘𝗶𝘀𝗀 from Wisdom and Wayfinder. I am here with my co-host Frank Majorana from Insperity. And today we have a very special guest joining us on the Scale Smarter series. And today we're going to be talking about leadership, team building, and scaling with intention with Elissa Zylbershlag from WorkWise Labs.
Hi. So
Hello.
happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. I was trying to practice it, and I hope I got it right.
You did not, but you are not alone in that.
Okay, can
And-
you please do the correct pronunciation
Of
so that
course.
I and everyone else that's listening can get it right?
Of course, because not only do I have a difficult last name, everyone also mispronounces my first name. So my first name is Elissa. I like the mnemonic device for that is Melissa without the M. And then my last name is Zylbershlag. There is no mnemonic device for that. But the cool thing about my name, which I really was not happy, it's my married name. I really was not happy about it when I took it, is it's German. And Zylber means silver, and Schlag means to hit or whip. Like, you ever been to Peter Luger's, the steakhouse? And you know how they have it for dessert? They have all their desserts. You can get Schlag on the top, the whipped cream.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's somebody in my husband's family at some point was a silversmith.
Okay.
That's
it's good origin. And Ali, I think that was an excellent attempt, though. Good.
Oh,
yeah.
Very good supporting.
For the intro, I would have just said Elissa Z.
Well, Frank, until Ali just said your last name, I don't say.
Oh no, it's
say
not
yours.
easy. It's not easy. Majorana. It's not easy either. It's not easy.
What's the origin of that?
The meaning I don't know. My father's family is from Sicily, so but as far as like I have no silver or whip or I don't know.
You got no schlag?
I don't know.
You got no schlag.
Schlag in my name.
No swag and no schlag. All right.
There we go. All right.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about leadership and culture. And Frank, I think you did an amazing job with coming up some questions for today. And so if you want to jump in, or if there's something that you want to jump in with, Elissa, feel free.
All right. I mean, Frank, it's your show.
Yeah. So no, I'm just the first question was really like we did a lot of talk about culture and leadership and kind of in our last two sessions or webinars, we want to call them. So one of the things you talk about the importance of is really proactive leadership, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to give us an idea of like how can small businesses really cultivate a leadership style that supports both the growth and as well as what's going on with the employee, like the employee's well-being.
Yeah, so I was looking at your questions, which there are a lot. I doubt we're going to get through them all, but one of the thoughts I was having when I read that one is this idea of proactive leadership versus reactive leadership. And I think a lot of leaders are really reactive. Something happens and that's when they address it. And I was having a conversation with a colleague that I network with recently who was telling me how his business is going so well. And like it's a small team. I think he said it was like 8 or 9 people. And he's like, it's going so well. And this idea of proactive leadership popped into my mind. Like, oh, actually, when it's going well, those are the moments where you want to work on leadership because it's easier. When things have gone down the toilet and you're reacting, that's when it's really hard to come back, right? So this idea of proactive leadership, I was thinking about what it takes, and I've come up with 2 conclusions. I may be wrong, and those are my 2 conclusions today. Tomorrow they might be different. But I think understanding generational differences is really important in today's workplace, and empathy. And what I mean by empathy, I actually brought a little video to share, but what I mean about empathy comes from 𝗲𝗍 and her understanding, all her research on vulnerability and empathy and sympathy and all of, and shame and all of these other things. But she has a really great short video on the difference between empathy and sympathy. We don't have to play it yet, but I have that queued up.
Yeah, I feel like we can play it now. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. All right, so
That's great. That's great.
all right, I talked a lot about it, and then I was like, let's not show it. It makes sense. All right, so I'm gonna let me just like give you. I'll cue this up. It's 𝗲𝗍, researcher, fantastic speaker, author. She has, I think it's, if not the most highest watched TED Talk ever, it's one of the most highest watched TED Talks ever on vulnerability. If you haven't seen it, it's like 18 minutes. She's so dynamic. You'll see from this video. So this is just like a little 3-minute video, but it goes fast on the difference between empathy and sympathy. All right. I'm hitting play. Oh, there it goes.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. 𝗘𝗹𝗶𝘀𝗀 Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Oh, that's the end. There we go.
That's a great video.
Wow.
So what is that? Having not seen that before, I mean, I can literally say that video word for word because I've seen it so many times. But having that be the first time you saw that, what does it make you think or wonder?
Well, I think when you look, I'm sorry, Allie. When you look at sympathy, right? The part that people sympathize to make themselves feel better. They don't sympathize for the person that's going through whatever they're going through. They're like, oh, hearts and prayers and love or whatever. You know what I mean? Like
Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers or whatever it may be. because you're trying to look like you're a caring person. When you're empathetic to that point, I think it's great. Like you're actually willing to get in it and experience it with that person. Your intention isn't to solve it. Your intention is to understand. I thought that cartoon illustration kind of portrayed that beautifully. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that was really awesome. And there has been this sort of resurgence in conversation around empathy versus sympathy and what does that actually look like. And Frank, I think you hit the nail on the head when it's like, yeah, sympathy is to make yourself feel better. It's to give you that illusion of like, oh, well, I did something. Whereas empathy, for me, and in terms of thinking about it as in terms of leadership, is not only am I thinking of what the experience of the other person is, but as a leader, I'm thinking of how to account for or mitigate some of those experiences that someone might have preemptively, right? So if I'm thinking from that experience of, I don't know, maybe it is someone who's had a miscarriage or, they're dealing with something with their kids, then what kind of environment or system am I setting up to be able to enable someone to perform at their best, even if they had those circumstances going on?
Yeah, and you don't always know that someone has those circumstances going on when you're the leader, right? And one other thing that I would add to this is I just think as a leader, using coaching tools
Mm-hmm.
to guide your team, that's empathetic, right? And the difference between coaching and mentoring is when you mentor someone, you're guiding them, you're telling them, you're showing them the ropes, you're giving them advice, you're taking them, down the path. And I do think leaders need to mentor their team members. Coaching is about asking questions
Mm-hmm.
and allowing that person to share what they want, or what you're really trying to do is elicit some sort of insight from them, for their own well-being. And that coaching your team is very empathetic because you're going down into that hole with them. I love that image too, Frank. You're going down into the hole with them and you're like, thank you for telling me.
Do
How?
you
Yeah.
do you ever have leaders that you work with get concerned about being more empathetic because they're almost on the line of like, well, that's not my business, like because you start getting into areas where it's like I really don't want, like I don't want to know this, like almost like I don't want to know about this part of your life or this struggle of your life because of a number of reasons. I don't, if you end up getting terminated, I don't want to be held liable. You thinking I'm holding this thing against you, or I'm not holding this thing against you. But also, like, I'm not a professional in providing counseling and helping and things. So do you ever have leaders that when you start talking about empathy, they're like, well, I shouldn't be empathetic because, there's a solid line between what I do, business, professional and personal?
It's the best question, Frank, because I have so many clients who are like, I used to be a people person and I used to like want to know things. And now that I'm the executive director or I'm on the board or I don't want to know. And that's where this idea of generational differences really comes in. In the boomer generation, right? Like I have a little chart here that I'm using off to the side, like 1946 to 1964. This is a group of people who really respects the rules, wants the separation, is like, they're very disciplined and they are structured and they want like frameworks and part of those frameworks are like, you don't get vulnerable at work. That is not the place for vulnerability. That's not the place. But you go down to
you do your job and you go home. Like
you
that's
do your job, you do it the best, and you go home, and that's how I want everybody to be around me, and that's my best workplace. And of course, this is a generalization. There's always, right? But then you look like at the generation that's entering the workforce now, Gen Z. This is people born between 1997 and 2012. These are people who want to contribute. They're very human focused. They want a job that matches their lifestyle. They want face-to-face communication. They want it direct. They want constructive criticism. Like they want it all, and they want to be able to self-direct, and they're sharing. You look at millennials, right? Millennials like want support a lot, right? They want purpose, they want satisfaction, they want deep connection at work, and they want support, right? So there's all these different generations and all these different needs, and that has to play a role.
Elissa, this is kind of going in a little bit of a different direction, but around generations. How much different are generations from different countries? Like, you ever deal with companies with, you might be bringing some different countries in, and like, because I'm sure what you would call a Gen Z from Australia is going to be different than a Gen Z from America, which is going to be different from a Gen Z from Russia and India and so on and so forth. Like, I'm like, there has to be some cultural differences, and that's why the thing. So, how does that? Do you notice? Have you ever heard anything about that? Or
I don't know the answer to your question directly, like generationally in different cultures. I don't know the answer to that. And I will say that I was an anti-bias educator for more than 20 years, and every culture has differences. And people bring those differences to work. Again, what I was just explaining, it's generalization. I remember years ago, I was sitting around, it must have been during COVID, because I was sitting around a fire, a fire pit one night, and my group of friends has a lot of international people in it, and my husband's from Israel, and there's all these international people, and this conversation started around what people get asked in America. The first thing is, "Oh, what do you do?" And that doesn't get asked. People don't put so much weight on profession in so many other cultures. I'm not going to say all cultures, but so many other cultures. That's like the 6th, 7th, 8th question. And so I think that's, people in America, and I am talking about in America, the job, the workplace, that's the first thing people ask. That is the number one. Is that right? I also have a ton of clients that we talk about work-life balance. Like, that comes up in almost every conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of, especially here in America, it's like that separation between your work and your identity is often not very present. And I think that's what's, when we're talking about some of the like Generation Z, very much for them, like, they are who they are, and they want to be who they are in every facet of their life. So work is indistinguishable from their play, which is indistinguishable from, their education and all the other things they're doing. And so, whereas with like a lot of the older generations, like what I saw with my parents, it was, you go to work, you do your job, you go home. Those people aren't your friends; they're your coworkers. Like that kind of separation. Distinction between those different identities of who you are. And so, yeah, I guess when it comes to that leadership, like, that's got to be a challenge. And I'm thinking for a lot of the older people who are still in those positions, who grew up in that boomer generation, in that Generation X, we don't want to forget them, because they always complain about how they're being forgotten.
I know. That's and I'm not going to out myself, but that's me. I'm Gen X.
Yeah, I'm Xennial. I'm like right in between that like little sliver between Generation X and Millennial. But it's
Xennial. I like that. Xennial.
Yeah. Or Elder Millennial, which I
you would throw the elder in there. There you go.
Yeah, at one point we were geriatric millennial, and I was like, listen, let's just cross the line here. But yeah, that's got to be tough when you're trying to lead and coach and guide and sort of train and mentor all of these different, people from different generations and just different mindsets and things that they're used to. So what tools or resources do you use when you're coaching people or working with people in those positions?
Well, the proactive reactive,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is something like set up your systems. And Ali, I know you and I have talked about this, right?
Yeah.
Set up your systems. Have a conflict system in place. What does your team do when there is conflict?
Yeah.
Set up meetings, for your, expectations. For example, when you have meetings, what are the expectations? Everyone shows up on time. Everyone has their camera on. Nobody's, sitting there on their phone like this during a meeting.
Yeah.
Have those expectations, have your processes in place. That is I think number one for leaders.
Communication.
I mean, yeah. And it's not, communication isn't communicating the way you communicate.
Right. Oh, yes.
Communication is about communicating the way your communicator needs or the listener needs.
Yep.
And I have this great quote, and I'm probably going to mess it up, but it's something like, communication doesn't happen when you speak. It happens when it's heard, internalized, and acted upon. That's when communication has occurred.
Yeah.
And so many people think, oh, I said it. I wrote it in an email. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not
Did they
communication.
hear you? Did they understand what you were saying? Did they understand what was expected of them? Did they know how to act upon whatever was said to them or communicated to them? Yeah.
Yeah. So communication is huge. I forgot what the question was.
I think I forgot as well because I was asking about what tools.
Tools.
So yeah, so that I think that answers that. I mean, I think that's pretty effective in terms of at least what the outcome or the goal is for being able to lead and have that proactive leadership and empathy and all that.
And that's why coaching is so important, because it is so case by case, right?
Yeah.
Like what Frank might need as a leader can be very different from what I need as a leader. And, and the pathway, who the people are on our
The
teams.
organization,
Yeah, the culture of the organization, like what are the systems, like that's why one-on-one coaching is so important for leaders.
And it's probably a little bit different it's different industry to industry, because you have different groups of people, like depending
No,
upon
Frank.
no,
It
it's
is not different.
not
No.
different.
Nope.
All right,
No.
please explain. So elaborate.
Humans are humans.
Mm.
I will tell you, I work with people in the manufacturing industry. I work with nonprofits. I work with government people. They all have the same problems. And it's communication, it's fear, fear of having to say the hard things. And that's leadership. They want to be liked. They all want to be liked. That's not leadership. You're not going to be liked. I had a client just yesterday, and she had an aha moment in our coaching session where she said, oh my gosh, I used to, she's an executive director, and she was like, when I was just the head of a team and I was like one step below the exec, I was the person everybody came to. I'm no longer that person.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I miss that. I miss those relationships. But she can't have those relationships. When you're the leader, you can't have like the deeper relationships, because there's all these lines that you have to draw.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for people. And that comes up all the time.
all the time. Yeah, it is. And I would also just caution for anybody that's listening, it doesn't mean that you get to go out and be a jerk to people, right?
No.
Yeah, because some people, that's where they take it. They think like, oh, well, I can't be liked. I can't be close to people. So I'm going to be cold and standoffish. And
No. How do you, the
Yeah.
question becomes, how do you get the work and job done
Yeah.
with empathy,
Yeah.
with kindness?
Yes.
Because no one wants a jerk.
Yeah, because you can be empathetic, but still be clear and straightforward. You can be empathetic and get your point across. A lot of times what happens is when people are trying to be liked, to your point, the communication goes away because you don't say it you're saying it in a way in which I'm more worried about your feelings in the way I'm communicating this, as opposed to necessarily getting the point across. But if you do that with empathy, to your point, Elissa, that's kind of marrying the two, correct?
You have to find that balance, and every single human has a different way. I work with this woman, she's amazing, and she tells me, she writes her emails, and then afterwards she goes in, because she's super direct, and then afterwards she goes in and she's like, hey, how are you? And talk to you later, right? But if she could just write emails, it would just be like, can you send me the thing? And so we had that conversation. And so now our emails are just like, and I'm like her, I like to just boom, get it out. And I'm always finding that I have to soften myself.
Mhm.
And so now our emails are like, send it to me. I did. Oh, sorry. Got it. What's next? Like there's no pleasantries, because that's okay.
Yeah.
Because we know each other and we have that relationship already. And we understand each other's communication styles.
That's important. No, that was great, and thank you for setting me straight on letting me know that all people are the same. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
Pretty basic, yeah.
Very good.
But we forget it. We forget.
No, because where my head was going with that, what I was thinking about, just different workforces, and different workforces are going to be made up of different types of people. But to your point, it makes sense. Everyone, at the end of the day, people have the same problems. People want the same things. People crave the same things, whether they're working in an attic or whether they're sitting behind a desk, right? It doesn't necessarily matter.
Yeah, and there's different rules and there's different lines and there's different cultures, but at the end of the day, everyone's dealing with people.
Yeah. And people are people. Yeah, makes sense. Makes complete sense. One question that I had here was, when you talk about team building, right, and you're talking about kind of growing, like, you always see these team building activities, right, done by companies, like, oh, we're all gonna build a house together, or we're gonna whatever it may be. How important do you think like team building activities are, and do you utilize them, and like, what's your thoughts on them?
It's literally my business. I think it's really important, and most people roll their eyes at it.
Okay.
Like, they hear me say team building. I mean, even the way you said that, Frank, you were like, they like build something, right?
No, but I'm saying
that is super common. Like, that is the sentiment. And I do not pretend that that is not what people think, because I know that that's what people think. Team building is, I mean, we could call it something else and people wouldn't roll their eyes. We could call it creating culture. And maybe some people might roll their eyes at that. We could call it like enjoying going to work because you like the people you work with.
How do you decide what you're going to do? Like when you're trying to figure out like what makes sense. Like
my thing is like, don't be cheesy, right? Like, I do not do like trust falls or, those are fun, but that's like for camp.
Yeah.
And they are fun, but nobody wants to do that in like, a skirt at work.
Mhm.
And so, I think it's just like, one of the things I used to do with the last team that I led was I would do these opening questions every meeting, like while we were waiting for people to come in, and it actually made people want to come earlier. And I had this list of like 100. I mean, I was like a question collector because I didn't want like a cheesy question, and I didn't want something. So like I would start a meeting. I have some of my favorite ones that created really great conversations. If you could only watch one TV show for the rest of your life, what would it be? And I will tell you, that really informs you about the people on your team, like what shows people are watching. And then people are like, connecting over different shows. And then all of a sudden did you see the last night? And then there's all these like natural, that's team building. Who's the most famous person you've ever met, and tell us a story about how you met? That was a fun one. It maybe went a little too long, but that's okay sometimes. Um, what's your current desktop or cell phone wallpaper? And why is that your wallpaper? That's a good one. What was your dream job as a child? Like for me, I wanted to teach deaf children pottery. That was my dream job. It was like this super specific. My sister wanted to be the toll booth operator because she thought you got to keep the money.
That's awesome.
My brother wanted to be the man who mowed the medians on highways.
Really?
And he kind of does that. Yeah, he kind of does that now. But so, like those are like interesting, right? Hey, Ali, what was your dream job as a child?
Oh, I know I wanted to be an actor at one point.
Ah.
Yeah. A comic book artist was also something I really wanted to do.
All right.
Yeah.
Frank, you?
I wanted to be a football player. Like that's very low, and then I didn't grow after 8th grade, and that ended that story. So
yeah, so I mean, it's just like little things, right? Like that's one little tip that's team building, and now I know, Frank, when a football games, I started watching. My daughter just started at University of Oregon, so now I'm watching the Ducks.
Oh yeah.
And now I know I can talk to you about the Ducks. I've never watched a football game before in my life.
You can absolutely talk to me about football. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. No, but that's good. And I wasn't. And with the team, it's just interesting because to your point, like you're getting people involved. You're doing things that are getting people to know each other better.
That's
right.
it.
And that's the idea. And sometimes it's you because I've been a part of some of these. I shouldn't say some of these. I take that back. I've been a part of some group activities where all you want to do is get out of there.
That's all you want, right?
All you want to do, you're like, all right, well, I kind of have a free day today, so I'm doing this, and then I'm heading out, right? And you think about what you have to do after work, or it's part of a day, and you're like, I gotta get back to work, and then you're
right. So when I work with team building with like organizations or in the workplace, I really think about how to make it so that everybody gets something from it and understands what's in it for them.
Yeah.
And I have my most popular workshop is on self-awareness, because people like to think about themselves. Although I had a boss once and I said, everyone likes to talk about themselves. And she was like, I don't. I was like, well, you're weird. No, but most people like to talk about themselves. So a workshop on self-awareness, that's team building. It's pretty incredible. Like the insights that come up, people get deep. I also make everything fun. I have,
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's fun when you actually connect with people. If you're in a
Yeah.
situation where you actually get a chance to connect, which is awesome, right? But,
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Ali, did you have any other questions?
There's actually so many questions, and we're so close to the end. I don't know. We might have to do a part 2 to this. We might have to have you come back and talk about some other things. Just because I think we can get a little topical in terms of just some of the challenges that we're seeing in the landscape now when it comes to work. Some of the challenges that we're experiencing, especially with, how do you as a leader deal with some of the uncertainty and be able to keep your team motivated or at least engaged, even though the outer circumstances might be a little chaotic and confusing and whatnot. You may not even know like what's happening, right? to be able to manage a team in those circumstances, I think is probably something that people might be thinking about.
Yeah, and I have a workshop on motivation and internal and intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, and the research behind it, and how do you motivate a team? It's a challenge. It's a real challenge.
Yeah.
But the empathy, the communication, the understanding generational differences, those are key in motivation as well.
Yeah, so those are kind of like the foundational elements kind of precede, some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you guys end this?
Well, basically, I was going to ask you, so if people do want to, I know you offer those quick 15 minutes kind of introductions into some of your larger work. How can people find out about that? Where should they go if they want to learn more about the things that you offer? If they are interested in sort of elevating their leadership, just give us information about how to find you.
That's such a great way to end. Thank you, Ali.
You're welcome.
I have a really easy website. It's workwiselabs.com. You go to that homepage, and what you were just talking about, Ali, is every month I have something called Just a Touch, and they're 15-minute free Zoom, and you can register for free. Come 15 minutes. I just had one this morning actually on self-awareness, and I teach one little skill. So the next one, I don't know when people are going to be watching this, but October 16th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. It's just a touch of resolving conflict. So I'm going to give a tool to help you resolve conflict at work. And so you can go on my website, www.workwiselabs.com, and you can check that out. I also have one-on-one coaching. I offer a free gifted session. My website also has a link about how you do that. And then I also have a 6-month leadership development program that's starting October 15th. I'm super excited. It's 6 months. You get 6 virtual sessions on different topics. You get 2 coaching sessions, and you get leadership roundtables where you can connect with other leaders, because it's lonely at the top. It can be lonely. So workwiselabs.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Elissa. That was great today.
Thank you. You both know I love talking to both of you. So this was an easy yes. I was like, yeah, this was a hell yes.
Ali, it was great talking to you. Frank.
Frank, we're all people. Frank.
Show some empathy.
We need to do some team building off the call.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, guys. This is great. This is fantastic. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Elissa.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for being on this ride with me, Frank. I always appreciate, our time and our conversations together. And, as the business performance advisor at 𝗘𝗶𝘀𝗀, the work that you do is incredibly important. And, really part of why I love this conversation, as what I do as a business consultant and I work with my clients, is being able to build relationships with professionals that can really elevate the work that my clients are doing.
Yep.
I help them out with the business of the business, but when they do need those HR needs, and when they do need to elevate their leadership, it's nice to know that I can have people like you to be able to refer them to, and people that I trust and I know they're going to deliver for them. So yeah,
likewise,
it's easy conversation.
I know, that's how I feel about this little group here.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you both of you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I think we definitely need to do a part 2. So anybody who's listening to this, watch out for that.
All right, good. I'm in.
Take care.
Awesome. Take care.